Welcome to the Fresh Start podcast with Aaron and Chloe.
Here's some of our favourite moments from the week.
I do enjoy a bit of a documentary, Aaron.
Yeah. Are you a Louis Theroux fan?
I am.
I love his stuff.
I haven't watched everything, but I've watched some interesting ones. He's got a new documentary out. It's called Inside the Manosphere.
Here's a little snippet of it.
Most people would know you as a content creator. What would you say is the message?
I coach boys how to make money, how to be outside the system, how to not have a boss telling you what to do. I teach guys to be proper guys, not these little soy boys that walk around in the modern day.
Would you see me that way?
I'm not sure. I'd have to see what your skills are.
Did you look at my arms?
Well, I just sort of checked your stature out.
Did you?
Yeah.
Go on.
The stature's not saying too much.
And that was just a little bit of a snapshot of a typical conversation inside the Manosphere.
So Louis Theroux dived in and got to know a few people who are part of, if you wonder what the Manosphere is, it's this new phenomenon over the last 10 years, which is that there's a bunch of influencers online, whether it's podcast hosts, people with like TikTok channels and whatnot, who are essentially starting to paint this new version of what it means to be a man.
It's promoting masculinity, but intertwined with it is misogyny and strong opposition to feminism, often arguing that the world, society, is biased against men.
And kind of painting this picture that it's a man's job to be sometimes good and sometimes bad ways, but it ends up kind of toxic, which is to be the one who's in control, and that women want to be controlled and dominated, and that they're really looking for a man who can take control.
It was an interesting documentary. I don't feel as though they really dug too deep into it.
They could have gone way deeper. I
wanted to see the women who were affected talking more. Yeah. I wanted to get the other points of view rather than them just saying what they think people want to hear.
Yeah, that was the thing for me, was because he did make a real effort to try, and whenever there was a woman somewhere in the room or nearby, he wanted to go and get their perspective on it. In one point, even, he went to talk to someone who was helping on a podcast, and then she got in trouble for talking to him.
The girls weren't allowed to talk.
But the partners, that was the interesting thing, because you could clearly see there was a disconnect between this message they were putting online about what their women want. And actually, when talking to the women, you could tell they were maybe partially on board, but it was almost like they were like tolerating it, or almost like they were like, oh yeah, but we get a different version of them in real life.
Yeah. The other version. So we've both watched this documentary, and if you haven't been aware of the Manosphere, think Adolescent, that TV show that took the world by storm.
It's guys like Andrew Tate, and to be fair, not all of them are that extreme. Some are just like, here's some tips on how to be a man, and that, not all toxic, but it's that general vibe of like speaking to men specifically.
Because I'm a woman, so I'm hearing this totally differently to you.
Yeah.
When these sorts of messages, these people are put up on pedestals, what's your take?
I cringe, first of all. I find it really frustrating because I guess, like, as a man myself, I've had to kind of journey with what does it mean to be a man.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I grew up, my parents were divorced when I was pretty young, and Dad was around, but he wasn't in my day-to-day life. In the sense that, like, there was a lot of time where I'm like, I wasn't out in the yard learning to use tools and things like that, like those kind of stereotypes. I didn't really play sports. Like, I enjoyed playing basketball and soccer at school, but, like, I was doing creative art stuff on the weekend.
So you can imagine, like, Louis Theroux stood in front of this guy and says, well, what do you think of me?
Yeah.
He's like, not loving it, mate. Don't
I would
like
be more
your
Louis
stature.
Theroux than I'd be those guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I remember as a teenager really having to wrestle with, what does it mean to be a man? Because at times I'm like, I didn't feel manly enough because I had this list of stereotypes, and a lot of it was very practical. And I'm not pushing back on, like, I'm really thankful. Like, I've since, I've been renovating my home. I'm on sports teams. Like, there's all kinds of things that I kind of ticked the boxes. But I was also really proud to kind of go, I also don't lean into a lot of stereotypes as well. I love to perform. I'm a very, I think, emotionally connected person. And a lot of my mates are like that too. But, when you got guys like this and they're saying like soy boys and da-da-da, and I kind of get what they're saying, but it's almost like this the image they're painting is if you're not working out five times a day with the buff physique, and if you're not kind of like, oh yeah, look at all the money I'm making and all these kind of very superficial things, you're not a real man. And most of the guys I respect in my world, they're not soft and weak, but they're not that.
Yeah. It's interesting to look at it. I mean, obviously, I've got a different point of view because I'm a woman. But have you found that this kind of, they call it the manosphere, whatever you want to call it, misogyny, male, I don't want to say male dominance, but like that kind of vibe.
Yeah, toxic masculinity, which I know is some people don't like that phrase, but yeah.
Have you found that increasing over recent time? Is this something that you've always found, or?
I think it has gotten worse the last 5 or 10 years, and I think a lot of it has always been there. And as they actually say in the documentary, it's almost, there's one guy who's like, we've been chipping away at it, but now it's normal to be like this, like they're celebrating it. I think it's always been there. And can I just say too, on that topic of toxic masculinity, that word, sometimes people cringe back at that. That phrase does not mean to be masculine is toxic. It is specifically saying there is a version of masculinity that is toxic. So it's not saying masculinity is toxic, because to kind of push back on this is not to be against masculinity. It's to actually go, what does it look like to do it in a healthy way? And I think, though, what has happened is these guys are getting influenced more and more. We're seeing it in so many different areas. Like, we're kind of seeing like forms of racism on the rise. Like, there's all different areas where it's becoming permissible. These things always existed, but it's becoming more permissible to express these things in public, and people are getting like millions of followers, so they feel justified. Whereas once upon a time, maybe it would have been like, no, your views aren't welcome here. But with the online community more and more, it's just, you can say whatever you want, and as long as you got some followers, you can feel justified.
I have really complex feelings about it all.
Yeah. I'd love your take as a woman.
Yeah. I have really around this whole masculinity idea. Well, I'm going to have a chat about it next.
One of the things that kept coming up in the documentary was this consistent thing of the men talking about, this is what women want.
Yeah.
We know what women want.
Yep.
You're a woman. Is that what you want?
I said earlier, I have really complex feelings about all of this because I have this perspective on that men, and take this with a grain of salt, everybody. I haven't really formulated this into nice, neat words, but men need to be strong. Men need to carry burdens. Men need to they need to carry the weight of lots of things. Like, I just think that's a man's role.
So when you say strong, I mean, and maybe this is the issue here, is like, is their definition of strength versus your definition of strength different?
I look at those guys who are getting all buff in the gym and all that, and I just think, lame. That's honestly my first thought. That's not strong to me. Being strong is when you're downcast, going, no, you know what? I'm not going to let this get to me. That's being strong. Being strong as a man is protecting when all you want to do is be a victim. Do you know what I mean? That is my idea of what a strong man is. Yeah. So when I watched this Louis Theroux documentary, Inside the Manosphere, about what a man should be, and they're saying all they want is to be, women want to be dominated. Women want to be controlled. Women want to be told what to do, and they refer to women as like, oh yeah, that girl over there, she's my dishwasher. Yeah. No, that's not. Well, I would say I am a strong woman. Yeah. And that's
beat me in arm wrestles all the time.
I think that men need to be strong, but that ain't it. That ain't it at all.
Yeah, and I think one of the things here is that what they're tapping into, because there are massive followings, and obviously there's a gap for a lot of young men to look up to role models, but also they're tapping into things that are almost right?
And that's why I have really complex emotions about it.
So distorted, I think, is the problem.
I know, because I don't have a problem with men being men and the whole, like, you know, I don't have a problem with any of that. I think that is the way a lot of men are wired. I've got no issue with, like, men having their men's spaces and, you know, doing the man thing and getting away and, you know, I don't know, all the different things that I can stereotype a man liking. I have no problem with that at all, but I really, like, everything within me just like writhes when I see disrespecting women.
Yeah.
It's like, no. A strong man, a truly strong man protects.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, is the opposite of protecting.
Yeah, I think that's that mistake of that leading means control, or that having strength means domination. And I think we as Christians should be able to set a way better example than anyone else in the world. Like, if people are looking for examples, I know so many good godly men that I had growing up to look to, and the people around me, even now, a lot of my friends, where men are made of all different things. Not all of us are wired to go and want to go fishing and da-da-da-da. But I think that we can all still have a certain strength and resilience to want to step in and protect, you know what I mean? It's like however we are wired is to lean into those things. But our biblical example of what it means to lead, I mean, Jesus himself gets down and washes people's feet.
Jesus shows us what it is to be a man.
Yeah.
And what did he do?
He laid down his life.
He laid down his entire life. As the verses say in the Bible, you know.
Yeah, I mean, one of the classic stories is, and it's one that always really resonates me. It's when he encounters the woman at the well, and you know, he knows she's got like a checkered history with men, like she's been divorced and married a lot, and with different men and whatnot. Then another encounter he has with the woman caught in adultery, and I look at his response to those, and he doesn't dismiss away and go, oh, those things don't matter, but he sees the person and he shows respect and love and ultimately forgiveness. And you look at the way these men, who are completely hypocritical, they're like, one of the guys is promoting OnlyFans people, but he's like, oh, but the women in it are disgusting. And they're essentially like shaming the women. And what they're getting is this weird thing of like, you want to use women and then shame them for being used. And Jesus' example is one of respecting women, but also this strength and laying down. It's like leadership is servanthood, but it's not weak. It's not.
No.
Like when he goes to the cross, I don't see that as a man who's defeated. I see that as like someone who is choosing to lay his life down for us. That is the strongest thing you could ever do.
It is. And as we ramp up to Easter, it's definitely something to get you, try and understand a little bit more, is who is Jesus, the ultimate man, the ultimate role model. I mean, not only for men, but for women as well, sacrificing himself. And there's a real resurgence amongst I want to say this almost tongue in cheek, but the key players in the worship music industry, as much as that like ruffles my feathers, but like that's the truth, right? The people who are writing the songs that many, many churches across the world are singing. There's been, I feel, a real redirect to making sure this is just get rid of every other bit and scrap that's not centrally Jesus and coming back to the core of it. I know that was always the mission, but I just feel the songs that are coming out, personal songs that are coming out about, I just want to get rid of everything and focus on you, Jesus, which, I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. And look, culturally, it's probably from a place where a lot of people, we live in a deconstruction era, and that word, you know, in some ways, in many people's stories, that can lead to people just walking away from faith. But I think what's happening is a lot of people are stopping and going, all these things were built up around the core of our faith. If we've put all of our energy into those and maybe it's distracting us from the core, I think we're seeing a lot of people go, you know what, forget all that stuff. I forget about what denomination I am, forget about this or that or the other. I just really want to be about Jesus. That's what my faith is.
Have you ever had a season in your life where you kind of rethought everything?
Yeah. So I'm really passionate about this discussion because I've had friends around me do the whole deconstruction thing. I've had different friends on different journeys with that, and I've seen different reactions to it as well. Like there can be a resistance from people to kind of go, no, how dare you question things, this, that, and the other. For me, I think I very much have had to look at moments in my growing up, because I grew up in one church for a really long period, and then I was in a different church, same denomination, and then in the church I've been in for a while now. And I kind of look back and I realize, like, sometimes when you're in one denomination, there are certain things that might come through in that denomination that when you experience other ones, you're like, okay, maybe that's not the full picture or whatever. And I realized I had to unlearn some things, and some of that was just stuff for myself, ideas that I'd built up myself. And I remember probably in my late 20s, early 30s, sort of going, you know what, what I would call it is I haven't deconstructed, but what I have done is maybe a renovation. And I liken it a bit to at our house is I see deconstruction as someone going, let's tear this house down because I don't know if this...
And deconstruction, if you're new to the discussion, deconstruction is when someone's been a Christian and they've just deconstructed their faith. They've questioned everything, pulled it all apart and gone... I don't really believe. I'm going to try and rebuild this back up, or maybe not at all. I'm questioning everything.
It's often centered around maybe they've been a part of a church or denomination that's experienced scandal or something like that, and so their faith has been shaken because the people they've looked to who taught them so much have kind of failed them,
disappointed,
or they've seen people hurt or whatnot. And so it's kind of where I see it go wrong is that idea that instead of deconstructing the things we've built around our core faith, people then dismiss the whole thing. But I've also seen people kind of have this healthy moment of going, look, maybe I need to get rid of all these extra trappings to come back to the heart of what is faith. And it's Jesus. It's Jesus' death on the cross, his resurrection, how he taught us to live and what that means for my life and how I can live and love others as well. And so I've been likening it to more of like, I want to encourage more people to do renovating
your faith.
Yeah, because I told a story a few times of like when we've been renovating our house for the last 10 years now, but one of the big moments, I remember my wife took a sledgehammer. And this was like within our first year or so of being married and having the house. We're like, yeah, we know we want to get rid of this wall. And so we have one big living space instead of two small rooms. She swung the hammer in and the wall was made of horsehair plaster. And we just had a moment of going, actually, I don't think we're ready to pull this apart yet. And so for years, we just had to cover that hole. But part of what we realized as we went through, and when you do a renovation, is like there are certain things that if you remove them, everything crumbles. Foundations and things like that. Sometimes there are walls and there are things there that don't need to be there. Like there was this ugly archway in our house, and for ages, we're just like, if you looked at it properly, you're like, it's slightly off center.
Oh.
It was like there was all these things that irritated us about it. Now, when we kind of pulled that down, because it's like this doesn't need to be here. In fact, there was this whole chunk of space taken up from what used to be a fireplace that was then covered up. But it was massive. I'd say like maybe a couple of square meters of our footprint. And some of it we had to make sure, okay, we've got a beam at place in the top to take out this wall. But a lot of it didn't matter. When it went, it actually freed the house up to be what it's meant to be. And I kind of see sometimes like that we add things into our faith, or we put so much stock in things that aren't actually load bearing. But at sometimes we've got to have those things stripped back. They might necessarily even be bad things, but if we're kind of treating like a wall that doesn't actually hold anything up as though it's the foundation, the moment there's a crack in that, all of a sudden that's when you think like, oh, the whole house is going to fall down. And it's maybe because you need to get back to going, what are your solid roots? What are your solid foundations? Everything else, if you build on that, and as the Bible says, there's a parable of building your house on the sand or building a house on the rock. I just think, there is space to ask some questions and maybe go, look, maybe some of these things are just things I've been taught with a particular bent. It's not actually core and foundational. Maybe it's okay to question that, but keeping the core, which is understanding who God is, who Jesus is, and then building everything on that. Well, that's our show. Thanks for joining us this week.
You can check out more of the fun on socials. Look for 99.7 on Facebook or Reema Newcastle on Instagram. Check out more of Reema's podcasts at reemafm.com.au.